I've done honest research, I've documented cases, and I have case upon case that shows this, but yet I'm not accepted in here. It's like I'm the most unwanted piece of the puzzle. You know what I mean? It's like they're all trying to put a piece of the puzzle together. But when I come with my piece, they don't want my piece, because my piece is going to change what they think the puzzle is supposed to look like.
Hey yo, there's something in the air, can't you feel it? It's like everything has started to be clear and you can see it. It's so intriguing to observe reality. What do you believe? Will we ever agree? I see a planet that's a question, see reflections of the past, repeated patterns, repetitions. A vision cloudy with deception, but we can press into the future, expressing our intentions. We want the truth, not inventions, not demonics or robotics, and to imitate perception.
Welcome everybody to a special bonus episode of Digging for the Truth with Ark and Neo. This is Arkalogik with Destiny Lab. Neo is not here with us tonight, but I'm here with a special guest, a friend of mine that I've met online through my interactions through the Duncan Trussell Family Hour and also through YouTube. A good friend of mine whose name is Lance Hardcore. He also goes by the name of ReptileAfterbirth on Duncan Trussell's Family Hour. And he is the host of the Reptile Chat Show on YouTube, which I have also had the pleasure of being on. Internet rap sensation Lance Hardcore is here with us tonight. How you doing tonight?
Pretty good, man. Thanks for having me on.
Cool.
I'm, that's right, I'm a successful, active, $10 million having rap superstar of the internet. That's completely true, everything you just said.
Yep, just look it up, man. The internet never lies.
That's it.
So where are you at right now? Tell everybody where you're at.
Well, I'm physically in Taiwan. I'm originally from Melbourne, Australia, and I've been listening attentively to all your previous podcasts, all 9 episodes. So I'm a big fan of the show. And before that, I was a fan of your rap videos, and we had a chat. So here we are, constantly bumping heads on some topics we're both pretty interested in, I think. Yeah.
No, it's awesome. You know, I know we come from a little bit two different worlds and perspectives, but literally, you know, around the world. You're on the other side of the world there. But, you know, I think we have a lot of really similar interests, like you said, not only the comedy thing. We both like, the whole comedy thing and having fun with that, but also the conspiracy things and the reptilian connection and how all that interacts with the world we see it, aliens, you know, all that. So, and I know that you've had, you know, through our interaction, you've told me that you've had quite a few interactions with hallucinogenics and whatnot. And I had never taken DMT. I've always wanted to have an actual interview with someone who's actually taken DMT to ask them some questions about their experience. And I know you listened to our last podcast.
Yeah. Well, let's take it back. Let's take it back a while for my connection.
Yeah.
Why we're even talking really is a few years ago. I went through an experience with, I've always been into the conspiracies since I can remember. I've been reading the UFO books and trying to find out about the latest news on InfoWars or whatever garbage I was absorbing at the time. But yeah, a few years ago I went through something with a very close friend of mine. We were really good friends for a couple of years, but he would prod and poke at me about these weird sort of philosophical questions out of nowhere every now and then.
Uh-huh.
And I thought it was really strange because, you know, he was the one guy that I could just hang out with and everything was simple. There was nothing too heavy to sort of contemplate about issues, about life. You know, we just kind of chilled out and played video games and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And, he kept prodding me with these little questions, like out of nowhere. He'd say strange things like, what's it all about? What's the point of being here? Why don't we just kill ourselves? Why are we even alive? You know, what's the purpose? And he was clearly trying to get at me about something, but I never really bought into it. I just kind of shrugged it off. Anyway, as the months went on from that, it turns out his whole family have been Christians their whole life, and not necessarily the super religious Catholic kind of Christians, but the legitimate actual Christians who like to question things and research things, and, you know, have their own testimonies in life. And, you know, I kind of spent a lot of time with this guy after he was revealing that to me, because I had a whole lifetime of talking about UFOs and conspiracies and spiritual issues and pineal glands and psychedelic drugs. I wasn't necessarily into them that much at that point, but I had a lot of knowledge about them that I'd learned. And he was on the other end of the spectrum entirely. He just wanted to talk about the Bible and Christian perspectives on things. And so we got into just like a year or two long debate about every single issue, every single day you could imagine. And the two of us just yammered on. And the whole time I'm shaking my head thinking, hang on, we're both talking about exactly the same topics. This is just different approaches, different perspectives. So yeah, that was kind of what drew me to you, I guess, was when we were chatting back in the day, several months ago, on on the Duncan Trussell forum. You know, all these hippies are umming and ahhing and booing and complaining because you want to talk about Jesus or Christian Bible or a different, you know, perspective than what they're used to. And they just wanted to dismiss you straight away. And I thought, hang on a minute, we're all talking about the same thing. This is exactly like with my friend, you know? You don't have to throw away everything this guy's got to say just because you don't like the fact that he's talking about the Bible. And it's interesting with the Duncan connection too, because just recently he did an episode called Servios, where he started talking to these guys who do virtual reality. And he ran a demo with them, and it was really interesting because he mentioned at the start of towards the start of the episode that he got in a Twitter argument with some atheists because he mentioned the Bible. And he was like and they were yelling at him and complaining at him. How dare you talk about Christianity and the Bible? And he was like, whoa, guys, I'm not a Christian. I'm just trying to tell you it exists. I'm just trying to tell you it's interesting. You don't have to throw it all away. You don't have to complain so much about it. It's a fascinating book. And I had a similar experience. I took the bait one day when someone was, I think it was Norm Macdonald or someone on Twitter was talking about something in the Bible, and I kind of just corrected him and said, actually, you know, that concept is 4,000 years old if you just look it up on Wikipedia. And, you know, I got this barrage of insults. But anyway, the other Duncan thing was when he was talking to these Servios guys, he mentioned, you know, are you guys bringing about the one world order? Are you guys bringing about the singularity that's going to bring about Armageddon? Are you working for demons and all this stuff? And he was totally willing to bring up all these issues with these guys involved in high technology. It was really cool to hear. Of course, they made jokes and dismissed it and didn't even answer him. But I think a lot of those circles that people go around in are often caused by something you mentioned when you previously appeared on Reptile Chat Show. You were talking about how pretty much everything is Luciferianism in one way or another. A lot of these different religions or attitudes or spiritual approaches, a lot of the practitioners will, you know, beat around the bush and sing Kumbaya around a campfire, and they won't, they might not even recognize that it is essentially Luciferianism. It's a Luciferian doctrine. If they did enough homework on it, they'd probably reach that conclusion, but they're not even aware that is a concept.
I mean, it's interesting that all these New Age ideologies, secret societies, all interconnect that Luciferian doctrine, the I am God, Gnostic belief system. It all always boils back to the original sin of the garden.
People are going to sort of see what they want to see, and then, when they're ready and the pieces start falling into place, you know, certain things click in the human mind, and you go, hang on, something's going on. Like, you know, I'm not by any means a Christian, but I'm absolutely have been through Christian experiences in my life. You know, I've had ups and downs, and I've spent a lot of time around the hardcore Christians, the real ones, not the religious ones, but the legit ones. And I'm totally down for it. You know, I absolutely get what they're saying, what they're doing, and why they live for it. You know, I've got absolutely nothing against it. So, you know, it's interesting because every time, something seems to happen. I mentioned this friend of mine. We were really close for a couple of years there very recently, and we were talking about sort of the Bible and Christian things all day, every day, and just debating and chatting and debating and chatting, and kind of teaching each other as well about a lot of things. But yeah, one day he said one thing to me, like leading up to that, life was pretty simple. I just read my UFO books. I looked into a few of these issues. I researched things here and there, but I never really had any real like torment or anything really troubling me. It was more just curiosity. And then this one day he said to me, you've got to be careful, man. You know all these truths, you know all these things in the Bible that are connecting in your brain now. You know all about God and Jesus and the deceptions and all this stuff. And I'm sort of, rolling my eyes going, yeah, here comes a lecture. And he goes, just be careful, man. Now that you know about these things and it's in your heart and it's in your brain, you watch how you get attacked. You watch how far off the path you go. And I was like, what? What is he even talking about? What does that mean? And, so I started going to church with him and I started getting into the Bible with him. And I really tried to like open myself up to all his ideas of God and Jesus. And I really tried to read as much as I could. And something, as much as I was into it, and as much as I could totally dig into like the idea of a creator, of a magic to the universe, a God, all of these things, I could never quite buy Jesus. I could never really say the name. I could never really say, oh, okay, I see the connection that he is a Holy Spirit or all these things. Something was holding me back. And then I just went like completely the opposite direction. As he said, you watch how you get attacked. You watch how bad things get. And that's when I got my problem with my hip. That's when I got this major mysterious hip injury that just crippled me for a couple of years, 2 or 3 years of constant pain, couldn't walk, and nightmares. And I couldn't quite see the connection, but I went my own way and stayed in touch with this guy, but basically went my own way and thought I'd try every psychedelic drug on planet Earth in as many high doses as I could find. I kind of, just took a complete left turn away from everything we were following. But it's always in my mind, I was aware, and I was still researching. I was still studying the Bible, still really fascinated by it, but just went completely the other direction. And it was almost like, something was drawing me away from another realm, and that's when the weird stuff started happening, I started like drawing pictures. Out of nowhere, I started drawing, and I got really interested in art and drawing cartoons. Yeah. But out of nowhere, I'd start drawing snakes, and I'd start drawing crocodiles. I'd start drawing all these weird symbols, and I had no idea where it was coming from. I was just flowing, just doing whatever. Yeah. And I started writing rap songs. I started just freestyling and just recording little raps and making little videos. And it was the most bizarre thing because I've never been a rapper in my life. I always like played guitars and was into heavy metal and all that stuff. So it was just this strange thing started happening to me. And that's when, had a few experiences with a few different psychedelics. Side note, I find it a little strange when people refer to them as hallucinogens, because it kind of implies that that's all they are. Like they conjure up a hallucinogenic image in your mind, and that's it. Yeah, I did all the mushrooms and the LSDs and the variants and you name it. But the DMT is where it gets really interesting. That's when stuff really started to open wide. So
before I get started, one thing that I find very unique about your journey with the whole thing with your hip getting hurt and this turn that you've made. I know I mentioned in our podcast and the last one the story of Jacob's ladder in the Bible, and how he injures his hip during this wrestling match with God. And at the
touched in the socket.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of weird, man. You got to admit, that's quite a coincidence.
Well, that's exactly what my condition was. It took like a year or two for me to even find a doctor that knew what he was talking about. I went to maybe 10 different specialists and doctors and X-rays and MRIs and physiotherapists. All these people, no one could tell me what was wrong, and my back was going crooked. My legs, one was getting shorter than the other. My neck was having pain. I was just constant pain 24/7. And finally, figured it out, found a surgeon, and he got in there. He did the arthroscopy, got in with the camera, and he saw that inside the socket was a crack in the bone, and there was also all the cartilage and whatnot was basically gone. I was just mashed, so all the tendons holding everything together was also just smashed all inside the socket. So it was almost as if some magical supernatural finger had come in out of nowhere and tickled the socket of the hip, and bang, years of torment.
Man, yeah, wow, that sounds painful, man. What an experience. But you got that all figured out now, and you're feeling better then, huh?
Right now, I'm just recovering from 2 or 3 years of not walking much.
Yeah, build back those muscles takes a while.
Yeah.
Well, that's good, man. That's good. So, so what eventually, it's interesting too that you talk about, turning the opposite direction, because it's not really a unique story. I've heard a lot of testimonies have that exact same scenario where they're like right on this, kind of borderline, like walking the line, and they're just like, I'm not ready, something, or like you said, even a spiritual type of, almost a feeling that feels like it's holding you back. So when you got into actually, what was eventually brought you to the situation in which you, took DMT and maybe some of these other drugs? How did that escalate into that?
Well, when I had the hip problem, and it was sort of at the start, I hadn't really had it diagnosed. I had no idea what was happening, and it was basically just constant pain. But it wasn't anything anyone could explain. I just knew I had this pain. I knew I had this limp, but it was still kind of fresh. So I was basically just dealing with it as opposed to getting it fixed, because no one could tell me what it was or how to fix it. They just kept scratching their head and like bringing in other doctors, and they'd all scratch their head, and they'd literally say things to me like, is it stress? Are you stressed?
Oh, man.
Like ridiculous stuff like that. And anyway, so for reasons beyond me, I went to Japan for 2 months, and I had a lot of problems with my hip. I'd be walking around for one day, checking out the sights, and then I'd have to spend the next 3 days just lying in my bed, not moving, to recover from all the inflammation. And what's interesting about that is, out of nowhere, 10 years after I'd finished high school, a friend of mine pops up, and out of nowhere on Facebook, and he's like, "Hey man, how you been?" We had a little chat, and he said, "Hey, have you heard this Joe Rogan podcast? Have you heard this Duncan Trussell podcast?" And I started checking them out, and I started listening to them. And around the same time as I was starting to listen to them, I was also spending a lot of time just sitting at the computer for 3 days at a time, not moving, and just investigating every topic. So, like I said, I used to be way into all the UFO stuff and conspiracy stuff and a little bit of spiritual stuff. So that kind of led me down the path of investigating psychedelics and reading trip reports and all those things. And of course, I started researching DMT, and I realized nobody really knew anything about it. And I thought, well, heck, I can give this a go. I can spend a few months learning everything I can about it. And sure enough, because I'd spent so much time focusing on it and thinking about it and researching it, within like a day or two of getting back from Japan, I happened to be in a certain place at a certain time, and literally a guy walked into the room who was a friend of a friend. I'd never met him before, and we were just chatting about DMT, and he said, "Oh yeah, I've got some right now. Do you want it?" I'm like, "Oh, okay, sure." And so he, it was enough. It was what they call chenga. It was it's not actually just the pure DMT. It's they kind of melt it onto some leaves of some sort, and it's like it's fairly potent, but it's also mixed with a few sort of dried leaves, and it's kind of smokable. You don't have to vaporize it or anything. But so I went home and I tried that out in a little pipe. I didn't know anything about how to really smoke it, how to do it properly to get the most effect. So I just kind of put it in a pipe, smoked it, and I didn't break through anywhere. I didn't, have major trips. But what did happen was I experienced the walls became snakes. Like, if you can imagine, the whole world suddenly goes really high res, like super HD, If you've ever been like, playing a Nintendo Game Boy or something, a fuzzy little screen on your old TV, and then suddenly you look at a brand new HD TV, brand new plasma. You're like, whoa, what is that? It was the whole world went like that, but every pixel was made of these little tessellated snakes. They were like little bugs and shimmering, and this bizarre like sort of world transforming thing happened, and just opened me way up to see, whoa, there is another level to this life.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I heard this music. I heard like circus music, and it was calling me, and it was like saying, "Hey, come, it's really fun." It's like, oh, okay, and then bang, I'm back to reality, and it was over.
Oh, wow.
Because I didn't break through anywhere. I didn't get anywhere, and that was it. It was like 30 seconds or something. And
so not only did you hear the see visuals, you heard audio with a message attached to that audio, sort of.
Yeah, it was literally like lying on my bed in the dark, and I saw the snakes. Everything became these weird insect snake things, and then I closed my eyes and I can hear. It was almost like I have a really clear memory of it. Actually, it was like I was at the edge of a forest, and the trees were really thick. I couldn't see what was inside, but I knew that just inside the forest there was like a party of all these elves and goblins and gremlins and pixies all dancing, and there was like circus music, like accordion and drums and everything, just diddle 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 diddle. And I knew there was a party going on, and they were like saying, "Yeah, come join the party." I was like, "What? Yeah, okay," and bang, it was over.
Oh wow, and that's fascinating.
So yeah, I kind of let that settle, and a few months passed, 6 months passed or so, maybe 12 months, and in the meantime, I'd dabbled in a few other psychedelics, but nothing kind of really got me there ever again. Now, it was a whole other level. Yeah.
Had you taken a lot of psychedelics before that, LSD, mushrooms, that type of thing, so you were familiar with the psychedelic experience before you took DMT?
Well, not really. I had, like, a little bit here and there, but I'd never really had anything serious, never major breakthroughs, more just, like, lighter those things, but after that first DMT experience, I then experienced a few bigger doses of things. But what happened next? The second experience with DMT was again a changa, a smokable leaf form, and I hadn't really figured out how to consume it the most efficiently. But I had upgraded to you smoke it through like a chamber. You inhale all the smoke into a chamber and then kind of huff all that in. And that was when I met a red dragon.
Oh wow! Okay, you got to tell us about this in detail here.
Yeah, that was a bit more serious. I saw the snakes thing again. That happened again. The whole world around me it's almost like Lego bricks or something that make up every pixel of the world suddenly comes up. And I heard in your episode 9, the testimony, this guy in the jungle who said the snakes came and attacked him. I had a similar thing later on, but that's not what happened. This was more like a digital thing, like a technological experience, like seeing like a Matrix.
Yeah.
Where you see the code come down the wall.
Sure.
It's like that, but the code was snakes.
Wow.
And so I had this blast, and I'm kind of shooting up through the various space purple dimensions and seeing various things, and it's reasonably scary, but I'm also kind of cool with it because it feels really familiar. And so I run into this red dragon, like out of nowhere. It's like I'm floating through space, and then there's this giant red dragon right in my face.
Wow.
And it says to me, "Don't bother me, okay? If you really seriously want to come and deal with me, talk to my minions, okay? Go and deal with them, but don't bother me directly ever again."
Wow.
And I was like, what? And I experienced like this pure fear, like pure terror. I've never felt anything like it in my life.
Man.
And that was a full-on like overwhelming experience. And then there was still a few minutes to go on this trip, and I started hearing a really distinct voice. And the voice was basically saying, we're here, and we've always been here, so you don't have to like research the mysteries anymore. I'm giving you the answer. You don't have to worry about UFOs. You don't have to worry about aliens. You don't have to worry about demons. You don't have to worry about any of that stuff. Here's the answer. It's us, and we're here, and we've always been here. We're always watching you. We're always in every plant, in every dog, in the air, in people's brains. We know what's going on. We're in the technology. don't sweat it kind of thing.
Wow.
And that was really calming.
Yeah.
Really chilled me out.
Mm-hmm.
And they also explained all this stuff. Like they said, listen, part of the way we set up this system of the virtual reality or whatever it was, they were sort of explaining how the world worked in a certain sense. One of the key things they said to me was, look, this is set up so that it sounds insane if you try to talk about us. This is set up. Mm-hmm. The reason we can hide in plain sight, the reason we can exist alongside humanity for thousands and thousands of years is the simple fact that you can't comprehend us.
Yeah.
Your brain can't even tolerate what we're talking about. You watch when you're out of this trip, you won't know what's going on. You won't even believe what we're telling you.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, that's a pretty amazing revelation, that explains a lot. And I just totally bought everything they said. I thought that's great. And there were a couple of other weird things that happened, like brief flashes of lying on a table in a medical scenario. The classic UFO abduction thing where you look up and the greys are prodding you kind of thing.
Did you actually see greys or alien-type beings? Or
I kept breaking through levels. Like at one point it was like a roof made of eyes, and then I'd kind of blast through the eyes, and there'd be, or more just like ominous, shadowy beings in a dark, swirly place. And that was pretty much that one. But the other interesting thing that happened in that one trip was, at one point I felt like I broke through to what's called the machine room, or where you'll hear people talk about this in their experiences, where they get to the core, they get to like the technological center of what's going on.
Sure, I have heard of something like that.
Yeah, and for me, it was, I woke up in what I can only describe as a matrix pod, where he kind of gets out of the pod and he sees all the other pods and everyone's plugged into them. I had a very distinct feeling of waking up, an experience, I woke up and I was in the pod and I kind of got out of the liquid and I looked around and I looked down at my body and it was a crocodile.
Oh my goodness.
My body, it was freaky. My body was actually a reptile. And then I thought I was having a human experience, but in the real world, I'm a reptile plugged into machines. And that's kind of what gave me this ReptileAfterbirth name. And it kind of fed my weird obsession with reptiles and reptilian concepts.
Wow.
And, so that was definitely an interesting moment. And
that's really...
after that, I really started just getting more into the raps and researching technology and doing the chat show and all this weird stuff.
Wow, what a journey, man.
I was still kind of joking. I was still kind of laughing about it and just making jokes about reptoids. And, you listen to the early episodes of the chat show.
Yeah.
It's fascinating. I just did a best of a compilation clips. I went through 14 hours of Reptile Chat Show I've been making over the last couple of years during all these experiences. And for like the first 30 episodes, I'm just joking about technological singularities and reptoids and stuff. But now that I've gone back and watched them with, some fresh eyes, it's amazing just the sort of the cohesive messages, as you'd call them, that I'm spewing out. And I'm kind of smirking while I'm doing it. But I'm looking back thinking, hang on, was I serious? Did I really say these things?
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah, well, I mean, what else can you do with, such obscure information? This, it's like the being was telling you, we can do this because it's just so crazy. Because what are you going to go tell people about this and make it make sense? Or, interesting.
Yeah. Well, do you want to get real crazy? I'll tell you the jewel in the crown of my exciting and absolutely terrifying experiences.
Yes. Let's hear more.
All right. So I had those experiences, and they were relatively minor in the world of people who've smoked a lot of DMT. And I was never particularly interested in the brews and the shamanic journeys and all those things, because, like you touched on in your show, they revolve around a shaman. They revolve around an external source. Mm-hmm. And, there's these going to a jungle and having wild spirits come at you and all these things. I never got into it. Same with, psychedelic trips. Everyone always said, you've got to have a sitter, you've got to have the right music, you've got to have the right setting, and you've got to have good friends with you and all these things. I never agreed with that. I never clicked with that. Because for me, it was always just, you just do it and it's up to you to sit alone in the dark or go for a bike ride, but it's a very personal thing, and it's not about other people, and it's not about music. And I tell you, the reason I stopped caring about music in psychedelic trips was because that second time I had DMT, I'm not making this up, as I was sort of coming out of it and coming back down to reality, there was a Pink Floyd song that started playing in my head, but it was like I had the headphones on and could hear it in perfect clarity. And I'm not even necessarily a big Pink Floyd fan. I'd only heard the song 2 times before in my life.
Wow.
But it was like I had the MP3 player, like access to the technology to draw it out of the ether and play a song. And then I realized, hang on, you don't need music coming through your headphones. You can just draw it from the universe. And weird stuff like that started happening. But yeah, I'll get to the serious experience. So another year or 2 passes, whatever it was, 12 months, I don't know. And I'm sort of coming out of my hip problems, and I'm in Taiwan. I'm chilling out. Everything's good, but life in Taiwan is a little different to life in Australia. You know, it's a bit of a culture shock, and it's a bit of a weather shock, and all these things. But I start, I don't know how much I should necessarily say on air, but let's say a friend of mine starts researching some things. And then another friend of a friend starts connecting a few dots, and some interesting facts came to light. And one of those facts is that there's a very common tree in Taiwan and other parts of Asia. I think it's in Hawaii and a few other places. And it's the Acacia confucia tree, named after Confucius. Now, Confucius, as you may or may not know, is a very wise old dude.
Sure.
And he had a lot of things to teach, a lot of things to say. And the plant is actually called the teacher plant, is the translation. And what's interesting about that is it's one of the most DMT-heavy plant substances on Earth.
Wow.
You know, DMT is allegedly inside most plants and most animals, pineal glands and things, but yeah, certain plants have more than others, and this Acacia confucia has a lot, you know. Like there's even like a reddish, purplish color that kind of leaks out of the bark compared to other plants.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so some people, there's some groups down in the south of Taiwan that make a kind of ayahuasca brew out of it, and they have, similar to the jungle experiences, the shamanistic stuff, but it's a little sideways version of it. It's a little touristy still, but it's a little hush-hush, and it's not illegal per se, but it's probably not, you know, the best thing to go admitting online. This isn't the jungle spirit 16-hour writhing in torment stuff. This is the bang, open the gateway, you're there, you're face to face with the aliens, you're chatting, and 20 minutes pass, you're back out, kind of thing.
I see.
Now,
okay.
Yeah, so this friend of a friend of mine, he's like, well, okay, I might have a look at this. And he kind of was on and off for a few days, kept like having little tokes, you know, little hits here and there. And he's like, okay, yeah, this is a very familiar space. You have these brief little 5-minute chats with a kind of an otherworldly presence of some sort, and then come back, and a little, not so much the same thing as the energy snakes and the wall and the face-to-face with the dragon, not quite the same, but like a different flavor of that, you know, a kind of a variation on that experience. And what they always talk about online, and Terence McKenna was big on this, he said, you've got to take 3 tokes, you've got to inhale 3 chambers worth. But it's very difficult because once you've had 1, you know, your whole body's buzzing and the room's melting and you've just got to lie down. By the time you've had 2, you've just got to pass out and you're there and you're gone. Yeah, and to get to 3 is heroic, those kind of levels. Now, a friend of a friend, after some experimenting, figured out a way to chamber up 3 hits very easily into 1 bottle without inhaling any of it as you chambered up all 3.
Wow.
So chambered up 3 or 4 and the whole lot in one go. So had a couple of successful runs on that, and by successful I mean absolutely 100% positive, in the sense that nothing really terrifying happened in a bad way, nothing really negative happened overtly. Now, some of those experiences were like pixies. I've heard this described. Some people say pixies, and I didn't really know what they meant until you experience it. It's kind of like an animated world,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like a flash animation is suddenly dancing in front of your eyes, but it's reacting to your memories and your thoughts, and it's like it knows exactly how to impress you and dazzle you because it knows every thought you've ever had in your life.
Mm.
And the other one was an overwhelming sense of like, oh, I shouldn't be doing this. This is kind of a rude little secret. This is very cheeky kind of thing.
Mm.
Like, it's almost like, don't tell God I'm doing this kind of feeling. Like, don't tell my parents kind of thing.
Interesting.
Really strange.
Huh.
And, but yeah, then I met the old familiar alien voice again. The old one that told me previously, hey, you know, this is how it works kind of thing. We've always been here. And it kept saying, we had a real chat. It was like, yeah, we're still here. Yeah, we know what's going on, blah, blah, blah. And we just had this fun little chat. It was like a neon party, kind of chilling back in the lounge with a few drinks kind of chat.
When you say familiar voice, did you have a visual representation of this voice that was familiar as well, the same being?
No, it was more like a neon dancing ethereal kind of space I was in. But this voice, I knew it as the same being, the same voice.
Okay.
And it remembered me and I remembered it. And basically its overall message was, listen, I don't care who you tell about this. You can try and explain this scenario away any number of ways you like, but no one's ever going to believe you. It's going to sound completely insane. Don't even bother trying. And there was even a point where my thoughts got scrambled into another language. You know, the speaking in tongues we speak of, or people channeling other languages. The thoughts definitely went that direction. Sometimes I would try to have a thought, and instead of, you know, I should sit up now, it was like a static noise or just a garbled.
Were you able to understand that foreign language, or does it just sound garbled to yourself?
No. It was like my entire thoughts had just been scrambled into an alien language. And I was just aware enough to realize that was completely insane and I couldn't get my English thoughts back. And then that thought would get scrambled into an alien language, and I couldn't even realize how far into the confusing alien language thought trap I'd gone. And, you know, it just goes so deep into that.
A revolving circle there, huh?
Yeah, got really deep down that path. Another thing that happened at one point, it sort of comes in like waves and phases. Like another one was I met like a Cthulhu-esque being. At one point I was kind of dunked into this oily, like tentacle world deep in the bottom of the ocean kind of feeling. And there was like deep, dark, old god kind of Lovecraft stuff going on. And
okay.
Yeah, but there was one major thing that happened, and that was the experience of the singularity, or the experience of the sort of alien/technology awakening. And I've heard a similar thing people have on deep mushroom trips. They say they experience the Earth waking up, or humanity waking up, or whatever it is. But this was like, the first thought was, this is what God feels like. I'm experiencing all time and space at once. Yeah. And then it became about alien contact. It was like the revelation. You know, like a beam of light hit my head and just said, "Oh, there's definitely insectoids and reptoids and greys and whatever. There's definitely alien life here. We're absolutely in contact, 100%, no doubt. There's no going back from this experience. You know for a fact this is alien contact." And it was almost like experiencing the world waking up to alien contact. And then it kind of morphed into a technological singularity kind of thing of just experiencing all technology waking up all at once in my head, and just full-on stuff. But it was completely harmless. I thought I could have done this another 100 times and would have been totally cool. But here's the trap. The serotonin levels drop significantly because DMT is basically a huge dump of serotonin. It's an absolute explosion in your mind of all your positive chemicals and all your brain highly functioning in ways it shouldn't ever experience. You know, it's a birth and death experience, and that's it. You know. So to do it once or twice is okay. It's going to push your brain a little, but you'll get there. But this was like too consistent. I didn't allow time to recover, and so then the next time,
Yeah.
this is where it got really terrifying. The very last time was similar thing, loaded up the 3 or 4 into one, fully expecting, oh, this is going to be positive. I'll meet the pixies. I'll have a chat to the insectoids again. Oh, it'll be cool. I'll get some knowledge, you know. And it was a completely different story. If you've ever read trip reports of Salvia, people say you basically kind of reality just melts and you kind of pass out and melt into it, and everything is just terrifying for a few minutes. It was basically that, like everything instantly just completely melted. And every other time previously, you know, you're like, you close your eyes, you lie down, you can't open your eyes. And if you do, it's harmless. You look up and you go, oh, yeah, I'm in a room, or maybe see some snakes, and then close your eyes again. But you want to lie down, you want to close your eyes. This was the complete opposite. This was honestly like the hand of God had come down and squeezed my head and said, no, you are not doing that again. A full-on experience. It was like, it was the complete opposite of everything else I'd ever experienced up to that point. This was, I couldn't close my eyes and I couldn't lie down. I had to stand up and I was wide awake and everything melted. It was literally the apocalypse. It was Terminator 2, you know, when the nuke goes off and everything's melting and burning. I experienced that 100% genuine firsthand. And here's the kicker. Not only was the room melting, my skin was melting, my bones were melting, my head was twisting and melting sideways, the wall was melting, the TV was dripping off the wall. I looked at my iPhone, there was no signal, and then the power cut out, and then the fan started melting, and all the lights went off, and I was freaking out. Seriously. Wow. Bizarrely freaking out. I thought, there's only one thing I can do. I've got to have a cold shower. That's it. So I go have a cold shower, and the walls start melting there, and the ground is melting, and I'm falling through the floor, and this is not working. So I've got to go open the window. I've got to get some fresh air. So I open the window. Wow. You know what I see when I look out the window? The sky is full of like clouds and UFOs and nuclear explosions, and the buildings outside are melting. The trees are literally melting like they're made of plastic. And the whole world is over, okay? The whole earth has been destroyed. Time itself has been disrupted. I melted the entire universe, and it was all my fault, and I'd killed everybody, and I'd brought about the apocalypse. And, man. It was full-on terrifying. So there's no aliens, there's no snakes, there's no shamans, there's no happy dancing elves, there's no music, none of it. It was just a complete, pure hell of everything is absolutely coming to a horrible end, and it's entirely my fault. So, I basically freaked out on that for like 10 minutes and started slowly coming to and just kept looking out the window going, oh, it's going to come good, it's going to come good. But as much as I knew it was going to come good, and I started seeing like birds flying, and my phone beeped and I got a message, and it started drawing me back to reality a little bit. I remember very specifically coming back to getting some fresh air, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd ended the entire world and it was my fault. And I went into the shower, and I just had a cold shower for like an hour, and the whole time I had my hand on the wall and just appreciating how solid it was, you know? Oh, man. I was just touching the wall going, oh, thank you so much, thank you, please, just remain solid, just don't melt ever again. And it took me like a good. So the other thing that happened during that was I remember very specifically just having my identity completely melted away. You know, there was nothing left of me except this shell of like terror. And and then a few months later, I'm sort of slowly coming around. I have like I don't really have any interest in consuming any psychedelics ever again, to be honest. Wow. So that was the last time that you took it then, huh? Yeah. And I'm not against it. I'm still not going to say it's I most likely will never touch it ever again in my life, but you know, it was enough to scare me away for a minimum like 2 to 5 years, I would say, from anything that's going to put me anywhere near that sort of realm ever again. But that was the key experience. And something else we can definitely talk about is since then, over the months, it's been like definitely like a coming to terms with that kind of feeling, like a traumatic, post-traumatic kind of thing. Like, I feel cool, I feel okay, but I just had to like live a normal life for a few months, you know, just go to work every day, just not think too much, just not watch, like I watched like movies, like I watched Transcendence. And as much as it was cool and fun, I kept just getting like major flashbacks, and it wasn't necessarily traumatic to watch, but it absolutely gelled with me that this guy was melting into the computers and melting into the future and all this stuff. And I was just watching the end of the world unfold on the screen going, yeah, okay, I see what's going on in this movie.
Yeah. Well, you can see how traumatic that would be, because, you know, you still have that memory. You actually went through that experience, and while you're doing it, you weren't sure. You were like, did I end the world? Is there something that is so real like that? You still have that memory. And I wonder how much of that trauma and that is, like I said, it's like a shortcut. It almost like somehow God put us on this earth, right? We're on this earth, you know, or He allowed sin to enter into this world and us to go through all these like what can be very traumatic experiences. And if you read the actual journeys of the people in the Bible, a lot of them had, you know, outrageous journeys. You know, there were some really traumatic times and battles with life and death and good and evil and so many things. And it's almost like it's interesting that how that can be a positive experience, because I went through this, and, you know, it's like you hear people always say, you know, I lost my leg, or I went through cancer or whatever. But I'm, you know, in the end, I'm glad it happened because it taught me this, that, and the other. And it's like, and this is kind of creating a similar experience in a very kind of short type term, possibly, you know.
It was overwhelmingly short. Like, I definitely feel I've learned that was awful, that was the worst thing in my life, but I've learned from it. I'm definitely going to back way off from all those things. And it's also definitely given me, I mean, those previous experiences were pretty interesting, but that last one really opened my eyes to what's possible, you know, what is reality. If you can melt reality after all those experiences and then still be responsible for the apocalypse and see the nukes and the UFOs coming in the last minute Earth has, I mean, that's something else entirely to live through. So,
totally.
Yeah, I'll be processing that one for years to come.
I bet. I mean, that's incredible. I mean, so you still had the visual interpretation of the space around you, so you knew where the doorways were, the windows. The actual space was still there, but the space itself just changed. I mean, that's...
Well, it was like the atoms weren't being held together anymore. Like, I remember I picked up a towel at one point, and, you know, the towel's fluffy and soft, but it was almost like it was made of liquid, like a gel, and I could see the towel melting through my fingers and dripping onto the floor. And then I looked at my hand, and the skin was dripping off, and the bones were getting exposed, and then the bones would start kind of falling down towards the earth.
Oh, man. Did you feel any physical pain at all during that time, or is it...
No, there was no pain. It was just
the experience.
Like, torment.
Yeah, the torment.
Just absolute, like, full body, full mind. Everything was just 100% trauma, fight or flight.
Yeah.
There was no physical pain. There was just complete, just confusion because I was so conscious while it was all happening.
Yeah. I mean, that's what people seem to talk about is their actual, even though their surroundings change, their actual awareness, recognizing what's happening is still coherent, you know, even though everything's always, you know, changing right in front of you, which is really fascinating.
Yeah, no, DMT takes you to the other realm.
Yeah.
It plugs you right into that other dimension. Now, there's one more thing I definitely want to mention. Have you ever heard anyone talk about skyfish?
Skyfish.
Skyfish. You might hear this term here and there. Skyfish.
Not that I can remember.
Basically, at one point, I mean, you go through possibly hundreds of different like phases. Like I said, the eyes and the surgery table and the meet the dragon, all these different things. The Cthulhu being under the sea. But there was even a time travel element. Like at one point, I was 10 years in the future, and I was in a hotel room looking around and like aware that I was in the future kind of thing. Like weird things just constantly fold into each other. But this last one was, this happened at one point during it was, if you've ever heard these descriptions of people like being attacked by demons, attacked by spirits, and the spirits kind of latching on, and it's easy to read about these things and hear about them, but I witnessed it. I physically sort of saw it happen. It was like I was swimming through some of the entry-level hyperspace dimensions. There was like yellow and purple clouds everywhere. And it was almost like I was in the Pope-mobile, I was in a glass box. But hundreds and thousands of these little black suckerfish, snake, lizard, shrimp, jellyfish things, like they were basically humans. They were basically little entities. All came storming towards me, and they all latched onto the glass, and they were all trying to get at me. And a couple of them broke through and got into my body, but the rest I kind of fought off. And yeah, it was like swarms of little black creatures just trying to dig at my soul and chew on it.
Wow.
Like it was almost like I don't know, I can sit here and say it really happens till the cows come home. And, if you haven't experienced it, you probably think, oh yeah, you hallucinated that. But it matches so many things I've heard and read after the experience, not necessarily before the experience, and then I just projected it.
Yeah.
It was, most of these experiences I'm telling you about, they weren't, I researched them specifically and then I had the experience. A lot of it was, I kind of had some vague ideas, then I had the experience, then I researched the specifics and I went, wow, that is the same. That is what happened to me. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's what's interesting is you hear a lot of people actually that they don't have any understanding of reptilians or serpent type things or, Alex Gray paintings of all these eyes and all these type of visuals that people get, yet they describe the exact same thing. They describe, the serpent falling into the abyss. They describe being, swallowed or these, snakes attacking them or going into their body and, all these kind of similar things. That you think, how could that create the same images? Why not, why always the serpent? Why not always a spider? Why not always, and like I said, there are different beings, but there does seem to be a cohesive overall message, at least from the majority of testimonies, of sort of a serpentine quality to a lot of the things in one form or another. From your experiences and the actual, I guess, the beings or the entities that were interacting with you, do you feel there was a cohesive message they were trying to tell you other than, just we've always been here? Was there any type of message they wanted you to spread or to tell others, or that would offer a solution or bring about anything that would be a positive message to spread? Or what was the overall message?
No, not really. Like there was never anything like they never directly told me you should hate Jesus or you should hate Muslims or anything like you should go and build a spaceship because there's a comet coming. There was never anything really like that. It was really just an overwhelming kind of revelation-filled discussion of we're here, it's a crazy thing we know, but here's sort of how we exist, here's our realm kind of thing. And it was always just kind of pretty friendly, and they were kind of glad to see someone break through so deep because it was like, oh, cool, you're here, let's have a chat. All right, bye-bye. And you just slip out of their realm and you're gone kind of thing. But what's really interesting about it is two things I'd like to mention. One is the ongoing things. It's what Chris Weitz would describe as, the night terrors, the...
Sleep paralysis.
Sleep paralysis, I definitely want to talk about sleep paralysis. But just to talk about entities for a second, I don't know, that it feels like every time, and this is where I relate it to demons and things like that the Bible talks about, it feels to me like every time I could identify something, that shape, that form wouldn't really come back again as that form. Like the first time, I said there was a red dragon, but I've never seen the red dragon again since. And the snakes, the tessellated snakes making up the walls, that didn't happen again after the first two times. And then, a later time it was pixies, and the first time it was elves playing music, and then the next time it was a Pink Floyd song, and then the next time it's greys, and then the next time at one point it was an insectoid race. And at no point was it like, oh yes, we're the reptilians, we're here, we live inside of the earth, it's all scientific fact. It was always shifting around, and the more I knew about certain entities or certain things, it would just go, oh, okay, it's like he knows too much. Let's change it up a bit. Let's keep shape shifting and confusing him, keep him wondering about it. But my sleep paralysis thing is probably one of the most interesting factors in all of this. It is almost like it hasn't been happening so much recently, but it is almost like a gateway has been opened up. And when I am very tired or very sleepy, like say I'm on a bus, I'm on a train, and I'm just kind of drifting off a little bit, I start having like maybe 30% potency DMT trips. Wow. Like I have the full-on psychedelic colors, the LSD kind of feelings, but it's all very concentrated. I'm hearing some music, or I'll start drifting off to sleep, and I'll just instantly be in a dream world where there's like a gray observing me or something like that, just for a few seconds, and then wake up. And a couple of times woken up in just absolute terror, kind of not necessarily recalling the whole apocalypse that I caused scenario, but just feeling that same kind of terror, just a touch of it, like maybe 2% of that same feeling comes back, wakes me up like nothing has ever woken me up before, and I'm terrified for like the next hour or two of the morning, just walking around looking at shadows going, what is going on? What is reality?
Wow.
And I think a lot of that's cleared, but it still comes back in weird like dreams. And some of these dreams are just dreams, and then others are, bang, I'm back in that HD world and I'm interacting with aliens, I'm floating in hyperspace, and there's something completely different going on.
So none of those experiences had ever happened to you before you had taken DMT?
No. I'd experimented with things like lucid dreaming and trying to astral project things, but it was always a very dabbling little level. And I'd have like one or two strange things happen, and then I'd spend the next 5 years just sleeping like a normal person. I never got into any of that stuff on a level that got anywhere, But this is something else. This is like involuntary.
Yeah, I mean, out of curiosity, have you ever dabbled in like a Ouija board type thing for fun or anything like that?
No, not really. But I've never really taken that sort of stuff seriously. Like, I've never been concerned about witchcraft will open up gateways, or, playing Dungeons and Dragons will expose you to demonic ideas. Like, that stuff's always been a bit of a joke to me. As much as I research it and know it's a very serious topic, like, just personally, I've never felt that. It's almost like, the little voice in my head is, you'll be fine. Don't worry about it. That stuff. And it was the same with, mushrooms, DMT, going out, drinking too much. The little voice is like, you may have heard some news reports about hallucinogens, but don't worry, you'll be fine. and I've always been fine. I'm still here talking today. Everything's kind of coming up okay, but yeah, there's definitely some lessons to be learned.
Interesting.
Everyone's necessarily ready to learn.
Well, and I know you've you've watched a lot of Chris White videos and some certain things like that, and you've heard the testimonies of these people that have, I guess, confronted these beings in the name of Jesus and had it, stop, or had these beings change when they did that into something really, scary, and then, and then leave or whatever. But, and I know you say you're not necessarily a Christian. Have you ever tried confronting these beings in the name of Jesus, or done anything like that, or
Yeah, well, that's another interesting aspect to it for sure. I'm definitely aware of those things, and I'm way into the Chris White's stuff where I just listen to it. I can relate to it so much. What he's talking about, I can really understand it. And yeah, it is an interesting thing. I haven't like full on shouted out in the name of the blood of Jesus, kind of thumping my Bible kind of thing, but I've definitely, that has crossed my mind, and I've been woken up in the middle of an experience and just thought, well, hang on, God save me, Jesus help me kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it feels almost like, it's a strange thing. It goes back to that when I took the left turn away from all this stuff and went another direction. Every time I'm thinking about God and Jesus and demonic realms and worrying about it, trying to overcome it, that's kind of when it attacks me and when it gets really heavy and sort of terrifying. And then every time I just chill out and stop caring about it. I'll just drink a beer. I'll just watch a movie. I just stop worrying about it. It goes away. I don't get terrorized. I don't have, anything happen. I don't feel tormented,
Yeah,
no
yeah.
alien visitations, but I'm also not necessarily growing. I'm almost like denying any form of positive growth at that point.
You know, and you hear the experiences of and how much they do differ depending on someone's scenario. At least, you know, people talking about their past experiences. These are beings that are ancient beings, familiar spirits according to the Bible, that they're familiar of exactly how subtle to be or exactly what to do to not necessarily scare.
Yeah, subtlety is the key word.
Yeah, not scare you too much, but also offer, you know, justification within their mind in so many variety of ways, not just drugs, but just everyday scenarios. And that when you recognize that there actually seems to be real intelligence behind the scenes that somehow nudges you in one direction or another, or somehow gives you an overwhelming, not any something that you can necessarily verbalize, but a feeling. And this is something that I've heard time and time again, is there's something about using the name of Jesus or calling on the blood of Jesus or, you know, all these connections to the cross when Christ broke that stronghold of sin, because I think, you know, that's ultimately what, from a Christian perspective, what Satan wants to keep us in is thinking, you know, either one of two things: either you're too bad to be accepted, or it's, you know, you're all right, you know, you know, you're an okay person.
Yeah. Chill out. Just watch some Seinfeld episodes. Don't worry about it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. It's kind of one of those two extremes, and everybody kind of has a little bit different version of that through testimony. So I really applaud you for being honest and explaining your scenario. This has really been one of the most fascinating experiences I've heard. I mean, I want to.
Yeah, well, it's an interesting thing, you know. I'm fully aware that it sounds insane when you describe a lot of these things, but you know, that's why I'm happy to talk to you about it, or even like a Duncan Trussell style audience.
Yeah.
A lot of these people have experienced similar things. They just don't necessarily know how to talk about it.
Yeah.
Or they do, but you know, they don't have the. Yeah, I just think it's been really helpful to have some sort of biblical perspective on it, just to kind of be aware of things like the subtlety. The subtlety is key.
Yeah, sure.
It's honestly, it feels like a computer program. It feels like software, like an artificial intelligence that just, no matter what you do, no matter how many ways you look at it, how many things you research, how many push-ups you do, whatever.
Yeah.
It knows how to subtly just poke at you at exactly the right moment.
Just enough, not too much, just enough to. And that's, you know, I mean, ultimately, Satan doesn't have to take anybody down an evil path of worshiping the devil. All they, you know, really ultimately the goal is just to get somebody to not completely take that plunge over to fully embracing, you know, Jesus and saying, I'm going to be a servant to you and all that stuff. And I'm a firm believer that God seeks people out, you know, that we think we're seeking God out, but actually God is seeking us out. And when that timing is ready, then someone, if they choose to, they're going to just open that door. You know, it's not about what we do. It's not about what we accomplish. It's not about do more good things than bad. We're all in the same boat. It's about realizing we're all trying to find answers, and it's, to me, it was more about a giving up of oneself into that fuller knowledge that is bigger than myself, you know, and the opposite is gain knowledge for myself. You know, the New Age or this esoteric occult knowledge is more like bring it in so I can take it in. And, you know, maybe there's things that because we're humans and because we're limited to this understanding that we just can't comprehend, like a dog can't comprehend auto mechanics, you know? So it's one of those things that, you know, like I said, everybody's on their own path. And I do have a couple other questions.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So when you were interacting with these beings, were you able to ask questions and get answers in return, like a full-on conversation, or was it them just talking to you?
Yeah, it was, I mean, initially it was just kind of voices coming through, and I would look around and go, oh, that's totally real. There's actually there's a voice. And the first few times my questions were basically, oh, what?
Yeah.
But as I got more comfortable with it, it was almost more like a download of information, you know, like they were plugging into my brain directly and just kind of telling me things. But yeah, there were a few questions, but most of my questions were like, whoa, who are you guys? What's going on? Where are you from? What are you doing? And, they were mostly just laughing the whole time. They're going, oh, we couldn't even begin to explain, but I think kind of thing. Like, I didn't really, I asked a few little questions here and there, but it was mostly, just them kind of explain. It was like they knew what I was going to ask and just explained what I wanted to hear.
Sure. Interesting. So, I know the pineal gland is a real fascinating thing. And, and have you studied looked into any of these things where the whole connection of the crystal within the pineal gland that could be activated as a radio transmitter?
Yeah, definitely. It's the water inside. The water, allegedly, the water inside the pineal gland is apparently so pure and special, it can resonate on so many different things like a crystal, but it's also very similar to the water inside your ears that has to do with balance. Mm-hmm. And also there's another reservoir in the stomach somewhere, I think, in one of the glands. It has to do with your hunger and your balance and things. So that water is that liquid is apparently what acts as the crystal.
I see.
To me, it almost seems like a Wi-Fi card that gets you connected in and out of the software, in and out of the world, in and out of the aliens, in and out. It's, that's your uplink and downlink kind of thing. And what's really interesting is I have looked into the pineal gland over the years. It's just a topic that keeps coming up no matter where you look. You look at conspiracies, you find out about fluoride, and you look at religions, you find out about the statues at the Vatican and all these things. But what I did find interesting was if you watch Hollywood movies, quite often there's a pineal gland, like a pine cone, hidden in the background somewhere in plain sight. Like that Facebook movie had a couple of them sitting on desks. It just pops up everywhere. Yeah. But what I find really, really fascinating about it is this whole fluoride calcification debate that people talk about. Sure. They say you got to avoid fluoride, you got to avoid fast food, and it will make your liquid or your pineal gland go solid. It won't work as well as a transmitter for the reptoids or whatever it is. Your connection to the spiritual realms. I actually don't remember the podcast. I listened to a lot of podcasts, and one of them was someone talking about, I think it might have been on Revelations Radio actually, someone talking about how there was recent research to say that fluoride might actually help assist the pineal gland in how it produces DMT while you sleep or something like that. Huh. There was apparently, someone mentioned a study. Look it up and tell me if you can find it, but I just remember hearing someone mentioned a study where apparently they looked further into very recent understandings of what the pineal gland does and how it produces its various chemicals that then help the brain function. And apparently fluoride is actually assisting it in one or two of its chemical productions. It doesn't inhibit it. So that's why it's in the water, because they want people to have these certain pineal gland activity, which kind of ties into what people talk about with, what do you call them, antidepressants. You mentioned antidepressants in your show about how it's about getting people's brain function to go a little different under the guise of it helps you secrete more serotonin. Yeah. Now that's almost what fluoridization sounds like when you think of it in terms of that new research, allegedly. I don't know. So much of this stuff you've got to say allegedly and apparently because it's very airy-fairy. I'm more than aware of that.
It's just fascinating, how all these things tie together and how, there's so much still more to discover. I mean, the more you dig, the more it just seems to so much information. It's like, how do you take it all in? And, the whole water thing is interesting because the whole study where these guys talk about where they show different intent toward water and it changes its structure and all these things. But it's like trying to actually attach some sort of meaning or reasoning of why it's here is the question. What does this mean? How does it connect?
Yeah, for sure.
Man, this has been awesome. I just really appreciate your time. What do you think? One more question. What do you think the main proponents are pushing this? Why is this so popular right now at this time? What do you think's happening to make this such a known thing? Not just in the underground realm, but in the mainstream, it seems like. I mean, you're hearing more and more about
Yeah,
it.
well, I have a bit of a theory, and I don't necessarily believe in it. It's just my current thoughts are kind of leaning this way, that I do believe that the governments of Earth are slowly but surely trying to prepare us for some sort of alien disclosure events, whether real or fabricated, or, asteroids or demons or whatever it is. Something's coming up, and, if you've looked into UFOs and disclosure and things, you know that there's millions of people around the world already kind of been dabbling in this stuff for decades. But I just feel like, DMT wasn't synthesized until very recently in labs in the last few decades, so it's still kind of new.
Yeah.
And, a lot of these research chemical psychedelics like 25I and N-bombs and all those things, N-bombs, they're all like, they're all very new kind of inventions almost. It just feels like humans are being prepared for something, like we're being changed. Like, I've definitely been changed through these experiences. I've definitely got a whole new awareness of certain realms.
Yeah.
Whether real or imagined, alien or under the earth, demonic or psychotic delusions, whatever it is, I'm definitely more alert to it. And so, like your Terrence McKenna's and now your Joe Rogans and whoever else going around kind of, I don't know, they're almost championing this stuff.
Yeah,
And it is very recent, and I have a feeling it's to do with some kind of alien disclosure coming up.
Yeah.
And also the technology, the singularity sort of ideas. I think it's all tying together.
Yeah. No, I think we're definitely recognizing some of those things. There seems to be this externalization of the secrets that were, a lot of the stuff that wasn't talked about. It's all being externalized now for some sort of presentation.
Yeah.
And it seems like a lot of these people, you think, how do these people have such a cohesive message? They're not necessarily getting together and agreeing to spread these messages in the same way, but they all seem to be saying the same thing in their own kind of way. So it's like, that's where I really tie in as well, the spiritual aspect of it, and the idea that it's cohesive in the sense of the whole, once again, the original sin, I am God thing, but the presentation seems to vary. It seems to adapt, like you said, to whatever form it needs to, which tells me it's trickery, it's disguise, it's deception, it's something that can't be trusted. And so it's so fascinating to look at all the perspectives. But then again, like I said, how do you bring it together? How do you get to that? This is it. It makes sense. I finally, what you entities have been telling me. Finally there, and I don't know anybody that's ever seemed to gotten that point. It's like, it's just always that it's just around the corner type of thing.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. People look at it from the Alex Jones view and the Mark Bias view and the Bilderberg and the banksters all meeting and whatever else. But, at some point, like the most common thing people get into with spiritual issues or conspiracy research or whatever, reptilians, influences in society, they always come back to this point of like, oh yeah, but why? What's the point? How are 6 people going to get together in a room and say, we run the banks, therefore we're going to influence the masses to want to smoke DMT? Like, it just doesn't make sense on a human level. Ultimately, looking into any of this stuff, you have to go outside the physical and material understanding of the world, I think.
Totally.
And that's even to begin to get a direction of where to grasp.
Totally. I mean, you hear so many people, even young kids, oh, it's the Illuminati. It's like, who are the Illuminati? Who are these people? It's like, I think it's much more than that. I mean, there may be people that call themselves Illuminati, but there's no way that they're implanting all these subtle ideas and just the right place at just the right time. And, like you said, some of it is so subtle and so you just got to be able to understand that language, so to speak, the symbolism that they speak to get it. It's really amazing to see the tie-in of all these different groups.
Yeah, for sure.
And then so many people are recognizing it.
Most people involved in the sort of high levels of it, I imagine, don't even know what's going on.
Exactly. Yeah, I totally agree. They're just, they're part of the presentation. They're playing their role. Yeah. But really, I think they don't know what the actual guiding Wizard of Oz behind the scenes is. So it's just interesting. Anything else you wanted to touch on or hit on before we close out here?
No, I think we covered it all pretty well. Just, like I said, I don't want to preach to anybody. I don't want to discourage anything, but at the same time, I definitely don't want to be seen to be encouraging anything. Just whatever you're going to do with your life and with your mind and your spirit, just be aware there's no going back. You can never turn back and undo whatever it is you do.
Yeah.
That's my feeling on the matter. Once you've opened up your sense of what reality and existence is to these entities and these ideas and these experiences, there's no going back.
Yeah. No, it's very true. I mean, you hear of all these people that have opened up, like I said, doorways or gateways in a variety of forms, whether that's through the occult, witchcraft, secret societies, rituals, or drugs, or there's all kinds of gateways. I think even technology, like you said, there's a lot of technology that seem to open up certain pathways as well. So I think even somebody can have the best of intentions and still be tricked from all these different perspectives. But like I said, I encourage people to just, be open to investigate all the different sides from any certain information. Gather the oldest information. Go to the people that arrive at ultimate conclusions and tell the different perspectives about these things and see who is at peace, see who found solutions where they feel at peace and they are on the right path. All of us, like I said, none of us are perfect or just got to figure it out, but
definitely.
Be willing to look at everything. Don't close yourself off. And I think that's where a lot of people fall short, is they get scared to open themselves up to maybe this Jesus stuff. And, it's like you said, the more you know, the more kind of you get, so much information. It's like, how do you take it all in? And they, they're afraid to go down that path because they know that they're going to see this stuff too. But it's
or the other direction, they have an image of, once you start talking about God and the Bible and things like that, you're suddenly a little old lady who just potters off to church every Sunday morning.
Yeah.
And things get pretty boring. You eat your biscuits from your tin. You got a hat, that sort of thing. But I think it's a much more interesting reality than that. Just ask, the most extreme Christians with the most interesting backstories. They'll tell you.
Yeah, we're all, there's extremes of every version of life, I think, and we just got to look at things from a honest and even perspective, because it's easy to get transfixed on one direction or another, or fall down a rabbit hole, or, Anyway, man, cool. It's been awesome. I love talking with you. We'll continue to build and network together.
Yeah, cheers, man. Awesome.
All right, well, I've kept you long enough. Thank you so much again. And again, tell everybody where they can see more of your show and where to contact you or hear more from you.
Yeah, cool. Well, I'm basically on the YouTube is the main thing, doing Reptile Chat Show. So if anybody has listened this far into the show and wants to Skype on and be a guest and talk about whatever, talk about reptoids, talk about your experiences, talk about your grandma's hat she wears to church, it's all cool. Just get in touch with me. And I'm on Twitter. I'm on Facebook. Just look up, what is it? Reptile Chat Show, Lance Hardcore, ReptileAfterbirth. If those words don't lead you to find me, you shouldn't be using a computer.
Very cool, man. All right, man.
And of course, I got to say, I'm a fictional character. None of this is real.
Sure.
All those stories are just made up for entertainment purpose. All right, awesome.
This was awesome, man. Thank you again, and we'll be in touch very soon and continue to network and build, man.
Cheers, man. Take it easy.
We know now that in the early years of the 20th century, this world was being watched closely by intelligences as human beings busied themselves about their various concerns. They were scrutinized and studied, perhaps almost as narrowly as a man with a microscope might scrutinize the transient creatures that swarm and multiply in a drop of water.
Let's talk more about these forces and what seems to be their motives. Explore all their sources. We use due diligence and research, avoiding tricks and procedures that don't align with scriptures. The enemy wants to defeat us, and he's created many rabbit trails as to mislead us. A fallen army army of dark angels who work together spreading lies and deceit amongst all people. They've been around since the beginning and have mastered the spinning of truth, the roots of sinning. They use the lure of pride and ego, used as a snare throughout time for every people. These are the weapons that they brandish, and they abandon their first estate. It seems outlandish. They'll try and bypass your defenses and can customize their lies to accommodate your interest. They can trick you into listen and can hook you like a drug, like an addiction. Even by studying their actions, you can put yourself at risk without the proper balance. And too much time spent in the darkness can have a consequence, like climbing cliffs without a harness. Don't drift too far into conspiracies, cause they can hook you into watching YouTube videos for centuries. Don't get me wrong, you want the answers, but know there's agents of deceptions running lies just like a cancer, blending truth with fabrication. So don't attempt to dive in deep without a firm foundation.
With infinite complacence, people went to and fro the earth about their little affairs, serene in the assurance of their dominion over this small, spinning fragment of solar driftwood. Yet across an immense ethereal gulf, intellects, vast, cool, and unsympathetic, regarded this earth with envious eyes, and slowly and surely drew their plans against us.